ask you, of those top priority solutions or recommendations, which one you would most like to see the City Council and the County Councils adopt, or which measures you'd like to see adopted in the city. So first, James, if I could ask you to feedback on the discussion in your group, please, just focusing on the top priority.
Absolutely, yeah. Could I just could I share that document that we said we were going to share? Shall I drop that in the chat quickly?
Oh yes, please do. So this document, please, everybody, if you feel that there was more to be discussed, points you didn't yet have the chance to make, this is a document for you. Just please you'll follow the link through to your breakout room, use the facilitator's name, and just add your points you wanted to make in that document. We will record it as well and use it in our report.
There you go. Just drop that in the chat. So let me know if you have any problems with accessing that. That should be okay.
Thank you, James.
No problem. Yeah, so you just want the one priority now we're doing.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think there were some really good ideas. Kind of we were talking about kind of how do you incentivize green methods, maybe some kind of digital referendum idea, you know, participatory citizen engagement with some kind of tool or app on those kind of key decisions, which reduce the risk on bold decisions. But I think the number one was to close those arterial routes into the city, and kind of the main point was do it now and ask for forgiveness later. There's been a lot of work that has been done kind of by Extinction Rebellion, by Exeter Cycling Campaign around what those routes are and the key areas, and let's just kind of get on and maybe trial it. Let's get on and do it. I think that was the main one from us.
Lovely, thank you very much, James. Helen, if I can ask you to feedback.
Yeah, just make sure my microphone's on. Yes, so I'm pleased about James' comment about asking for forgiveness later, given what we've ended up with. I think it's, you know, the immediacy of action. There's the real concern that if things are allowed to drift much longer, we have lost that opportunity. So given all the work that's being done, can we introduce pilot schemes as soon as possible around closing small numbers of roads or routes into the city for cars around the city at selected locations and see what happens? But, you know, also a bit more stick attached to that. You know, is there an opportunity to trial a temporary congestion charge aligned to that as well for further discouragement for private cars?
Lovely, thank you very much, Helen. George, are you there? I can't see you, sorry.
So the main thing from us was to pedestrianise the historical city centre. Again, everyone was mostly talking about the immediacy of action required, but there are things that are going to need to be thought about in the long term as well. But for the immediate, right now, pedestrianise the city centre.
Lovely, thank you very much, George. Kate.
Hi, yeah, following on the same theme. So there was definitely a sense of we need to get on and do it now. And the main thing was road closures, closing main roads in Exeter.
Is that for to encourage walking and cycling more?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, to encourage walking and cycling and to discourage people using the cars. There was a general consensus that even people who are not interested in the environment or climate change, as humans, we're generally pretty lazy. So we will choose the cheapest and quickest thing. And so if we can incentivize people to make the right choice, so if roads are closed, it's quicker to use the bike or to walk, or for them to get the bus in, then that will work.
Lovely, thank you, Kate. Mark.
Yeah, if I had to summarise, just one point would be the reallocation of road space in a way that doesn't just displace the traffic somewhere else. So narrowing lanes and making more space for cyclists and having continuous bus lanes and that kind of thing.
Lovely, thank you, Mark. Mike Walton.
Thank you very much. The underlying theme of all that peppered our discussion actually was we need to catch the sense of urgency and immediacy here, not only for the COVID crisis, but also for the climate crisis that underpin what we're doing. So some of the hints of some of our leaders that, you know, this is urgency. We want to sort of put power behind that and say, be bold, leaders, be bold. Now is the time to grasp this. It's electorally strong for you to do so. Now, it maybe won't surprise you, but let me promise I didn't spike the discussion that our most important thing that we said we should be doing is building safe segregated cycle routes. That was when we did a little voting of what we needed to do, followed closely by car-free areas in the city.
Lovely, thank you, Mike. Rolly?
Hi, yeah, so following on a very similar theme, our group discussed ultimately leading to a pedestrianised and car-free city centre, but centering on let's say, well, let's get a suite of quick wins that we can do right now, this week. The quick wins, like removing, cutting back vegetation on the existing pedestrianised and cycle routes, getting bus lanes so they're 24-hour, putting bike racks on buses, putting bike racks within the train system, and having better hubs and places to lock up your bike. So actively encourage right now the use of bicycles and buses right now, and then using experimental traffic orders to actually close roads right now to show everyone that we mean business and it's actually happening. It gives you the foothold and then the time to then put forward a longer term proposal that ultimately reallocates funding longer term into a solidified car-free city centre.
Lovely, thank you, Rolly. Alex Dawn.
Yes, so I guess the conversation started off much more of sort of a focus on the Devon and Exeter transport strategies, how it's going to affect the Devon Metro, and it could basically quite derail, bad choice of words, the plan which they had to sort of mitigate the growth in Exeter. So quite potentially that this crisis could take the plan back to the drawing boards. Then the discussion got onto the immediacy of the problem, which isn't about the longer term growth of movements in and out of the city, but how do you handle current or the returning levels of person movements in the very immediate future? What is going on? I understand that there's some temporary measures coming in from the 1st of June. And I think the real focus is on that immediate response and not falling back on, we had some discussion about what people have been campaigning for decades. There's a lot of long-standing measures such as can you shift travel times, encourage work from home, all of that sort of conversation and rhetoric which has been going on for a long time prior to this crisis.
Lovely, thanks, Alex. Elaine?
Hi, yes.
Oh, yeah.
We agreed with everybody. The reallocation of road space was also really important, especially along the lines of the livable Exeter design, so closing one of the bridges at X bridges and reallocating that, but also communication and education, so identifying communities that would be really engaged with having road closures, but also making sure that we speak to groups like the elderly and disabled to ensure we don't exclude people. So we are addressing blockers to active travel for certain groups of people. And obviously it's a very hilly city. We have to make sure that whatever we put in place is inclusive for everybody, including the carers and enablers for certain groups of people as well.
Lovely, thank you. Glenn?
Very similar to the other feedback. I think there's a kind of a few important points. One is that often when you pedestrianise things or create stuff that's better for pedestrians and cyclists, there's an immediate backlash, but after a while people love it and they don't want it to go away. So a lot of this is about leadership and taking advantage of the current situation, and that's going to require some courage, but we want some immediacy in the group. We wanted some immediacy, stuff to happen right now, stuff done cheaply and quickly, to help with that process of engaging more, a wider group of people. And that should either be things like arterial routes, and of course we talked about Union Road, but it should also be focused on community centres, so places where people primarily live, not being used as rat runs, and so doing things to shut those rat runs off from drivers and reclaim them for the way they have been in the last 8 weeks. And then we also briefly at the end talked about hypothecated taxes and workplace parking levy and stuff like that, which from an economic point of view might be seen as regressive, but it's actually an opportunity to, I think people would understand that right now. But I think our primary recommendation is to reclaim community spaces with cheap pop-up capabilities.
Lovely, thank you, Glenn. And just finally on my group, it's great to see that actually we were reflecting the same sort of thing, that the opportunity is now and the urgency is here to take advantage of that and make sure we implement changes now. And also talk through some low-hanging fruit, like changing fuels in buses and public transport, and what might be available in terms of how that might biomethane and things like that, and how that might create some local jobs as well. And also we turned to the grassroots and the fact the city should be working together right through from grassroots to the councils too. But the primary one that we came back with at the end of it was that there was a call for the two councils, city councils and county councils, to work together, that they'd look at what they can do and with what powers and what resource, and be transparent in that. It's felt that there's some need to deliver on things in that vein soon. And we then talked about HATOC and the fact that the meetings need to take place more regularly, and also to provide evidence the councils are doing something. Sorry, George, that wasn't very succinct, was it? I know you were trying to capture all of our primary recommendations.
Councils work together and be transparent, relatively succinct.
Excellent. So George is just going to tweak those recommendations into a poll. He'll drop the poll in a minute into the group chat, and we're going to ask you to put your mark against which recommendation you would most like to see happen in the city. It's a doodle poll. You'll be aware that doodle polls ask for your name. If you would like to put your name in there, then it's great. It will help us provide the evidence back in our report that you're real people. If you don't want to, please don't feel you have to. It's really important that we find out your views on what you want to recommend. So thank you very much. In the
we're using, though, are temporary measures, so they can be put in place, and then it's up to people to come to us after that. So it's much quicker to get them